Which company has the cheapest car insurance for your situation? Also, usually home insurance mixed in with it if you're a homeowner. So let's dive in and go over the best insurance companies that have the cheapest rate and which ones are competitive as far as paying claims. We want to make sure that we're covered and we're paying a low price. Now, here's what I did. I actually did some research on this subject and I started doing some deep dives on things, and I'm going to give some of the numbers that the internet tells you. And based on the research that I've done over the last 10 years, what those numbers really likely are going to be. Depending on the state that you're in, if you're in Texas, if you're in Michigan, if you're in Virginia, Ohio, all of those states, they have different rules, different laws. So there are some differences that you're going to find. And let me know in the comments below which ones you found. Let's start off with the average. The national average, according to the research, says that your car insurance, your median insurance, should be under $1,500. And I would say that's true if it's 6 months. Right now, the average that I've seen across the board is right around that $2,200 to $2,500. If you're paying over $200 a month for car insurance now, then it might make sense to either call your agent, see if there's better options, or if you don't have an agent that you know, like, or trust, then I'll put a link in the description below where you can work with an independent agent. That's somebody that can shop it across Nationwide and Safeco and Progressive and Geico and all of those major companies so that they can see who has the best rate based on what your scenario is. Now, the one thing that the research did tell me is that actually I was even a little bit off because it said the national average versus the state average. So that number, the 1,600, was the national average. They're saying that the state average is around $2,600 per year, so about $217 per month, according to Bankrate and the 2025 research. Now, the average, actually, I was right on. It said that it was in Michigan, which happens to be my state, $3,200 a year. Virginia is about $2,100 per year. So right around that $21,000 to $3,000, depending on the state that you live in. Texas is one of those states that, even though they're really high risk on homes, their autos are really inexpensive. I could throw a Geico or a Progressive or a Safeco in there, and you're probably not even paying the $150 a month. I've had customers that pay $40 a month. So it just depends on the scenario and the type of coverages that you're looking for there. Now, the typical customer we're looking at in this scenario is someone that's around 40 years old. If you're a little bit younger, I'll give you some tweaks at the end that you can do that. But the typical 40-year-old, the average premium or average company that you're going to be looking at is going to be USAA, who is falling down to the wayside a little bit more than they should have over the last couple of years. So I maybe bumped them down a little bit, but Geico as well, they're very consistent with that if you're looking just for car insurance. If you're looking to combine them, you're looking more of a Nationwide or a Safeco. So let's go into some of the numbers. So based on that, not saying state specific, just going in, this is where you got to do the research, or I'll give you some answers here too. But in general, the agent's going to do the research. State Farm is very competitive for 40-year-olds across the US. Even though they're in the news for every other thing that they did this, that's another. I even got some videos on here that go over that. There's a lot that they do that I don't necessarily agree with. So it's more of, do you want to be with a company such as that? Now, that doesn't mean they're a bad company. They're just big company. Big companies get a lot of attention, and with that lot of attention, there's some negative in there. So State Farm, you've got Erie Insurance. They've been coming in very competitive for states that they're in. They're a little bit restrictive in some of the states and allowing new appointments. So you might be working with an agent that may not be focused on the right things. So you got to be a little bit weary with that. Nationwide, also, they're only working with specific agents. So you may find some restrictions there. If you're not bundling, they're not really going to be a great fit because they really are looking for that 2 cars, home and auto type person. Mainly because they're going to give you a better price. The deals, the combos, all of those things just fit well for what they're looking for as a client. Their product is priced based on that. American Family, they're fairly competitive as well. USAA, as we mentioned, is also in the mix. So let's go into specific numbers and share some of the data behind that, because there are some price factors that we got to factor in as well. So according to Value Penguin, State Farm averages about $134 per month. That's actually not bad. Their product isn't bad. They've got a decent home and auto option. They've got really competitive agents. There are some agents that are there are some good agents. I've got some friends that are State Farm agents and they do great. So there are some good and bads to that. Erie Insurance, they're only available in 12 states according to the research of Value Penguin, but their rock bottom rate, their bottom price is about $115 per month for full coverage. That's actually not bad. I personally don't mind that price. Now, their direct competitors is going to be Nationwide and Geico. So those guys are going to come in very competitive, right around the same pricing, if not even a little bit better, depending on the scenario. Companies like Safeco, they're usually a little bit more expensive, but they're also one of the more premium companies. They're owned by Liberty Mutual and eventually will become the Liberty Mutual brand. One of the reasons they're being more competitive is because they're starting to use AI, especially on the home insurance. They're actually analyzing the area, determining if there's trees overhanging the house, stuff like that. And if it's a good fit, they give really good pricing. So talk to the agent. If not, I'll put that link in the description below to find out if that is a new update that they just recently done that may benefit you. Okay, Mark, but it's not just me in a car. I've got a family and I've got multiple vehicles. So if you have a multiple vehicle situation where you're looking for the best deal, Geico actually comes in very competitive in most states. For full coverage, they're averaging about $1,407 a year. That's just a little bit over $100 a month. Not bad. They are very competitive, but they're not necessarily the home focus I would lean towards, because they really just don't have their own. They're using everyone under the sun to sell the home insurance, so you're guessing and choosing which company you're going to end up with. That's why when you look at what's called your declarations page, there's these underwriting companies. And even nationwide, as much as they write, they have 10, 20, 30 different underwriting companies that they utilize. Depending on the one that you're with, you're still with a Geico product. But at the end of the day, if you're looking mainly just the focus on auto, they're going to be a really good competitive fit. Okay, but what about coverage? I want satisfaction, right? I want that satisfaction rating really high. And which company should lean towards there? Some of the companies that are actually in this list weren't even ones that we mentioned, because you get what you pay for in these scenarios. So when you're paying a higher premium, you're paying for that. Let's just take care of the customer 100% of the time. And the companies that are doing really well with that is Amica. They've been good. I haven't really heard anything bad. They're a little bit smaller, so you're not going to have that larger footprint. You've got New Jersey manufacturers. They're more specific to a certain few states, so they've been doing really good with that. They've had a few more bad reviews lately, but in general, they're one of the top companies for customer satisfaction. State Farm pays their claims, so they're doing decent there. And then you've got Allstate, who honestly, I don't know why they came up in the research, because I like them. Good company. They say they're really good with customer satisfaction reviews, so take it for what you will, but I have found that they're not usually in the top tier for having the customer satisfaction, partially because the way that their policies are built, especially with the homes, you got to be careful with the type of roof, the deductible, all of those pieces, that you're covered properly. That's really more on the agent than it is on the carrier. And I personally have seen some companies that people have had really bad ratings for be one of the best companies I've ever dealt with, because if the agent knows what coverages you're supposed to carry, they have the right fit for the price you're trying to pay, and they're really just the good overall knowledge of what they're doing. That's what we focus on, is trying to make sure that the fit is better than what the price is. That way, if there is a claim, you're not having to fight with it, you're not having to figure it out, you're not getting denied. All of those pieces aren't falling apart because you went with a cheaper option. So what should you do with your car insurance, maybe even your home insurance? If you have a local agent, I always recommend that you work with the person you already trust, because if you know that they're doing the right thing, that's more important than any of this. The price is the price, and it's not going to change if you go to a different agent. So work with the one that you have. If you don't have one that you quite understand or don't think that they're taking care of you correctly, I'll put that link in the description below where you can find a new independent agent that should be able to shop and give you some other options. That way you can have them look at all of your profile data, your insurance score, your claims, your cars, your location, all of the things that make up this profile. And they're able to take it and bring it to all of these carriers all at once usually and say, who is a good fit for this? And then they can determine also if it's a good fit for you based on the coverage that you should have and the ones that you actually care about. Maybe you do care about having a larger deductible or a smaller deductible or vice versa. It's all relative to affordability, to having the most coverage, to not being over-insured as well. I'll put that link in the description below. Let me know in your comments if you found either of these companies to be either really good or really bad with any scenario that you've had. If you are also still looking for better deals, we've got our discount video here. More importantly, you should know the coverages that you need to carry. The first one I would check out is our car discount, or our car 101, which is here. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.